Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Money Bear podcast, where I am your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Clo Bare Money Coach. And we talk about all things money on this podcast. And today we're going to bring on a special guest, Aunt Kara, to talk about travel hacking. Aunt Kara is like one of the OGs in my world of travel hacking, and she's one of the first people that I found who specializes in travel hacking. And I am excited to bring her on today. What I really like about her is she is a travel hacker that is not so crazy extreme. She makes it a lot more accessible to the average Joe who only really wants to dabble in travel hacking. And so that's why I was super excited to bring her on today. But also, she's just a friend. We've been friends on the internet for I don't know how long, a year and a half at least. And so I was excited to finally meet her today and have a little chat with her. So we will get to that in a few minutes. But first, what's going on in the Clo Bare universe? So in the Clo Bare universe, I mean, gosh, guys, I don't know if this is just me being boring or what, but I feel like I don't have that much new going on. I am spending my last and final week here in San Diego. I have absolutely loved it. And then Logan and I are going to head on up to LA for about 10 days. We'll actually be doing some recording for a special announcement that will be coming out soon. And then we will make our way up the coast, spend a few days in San Francisco, the San Francisco area. But oh my gosh, guys, I was looking at the prices of an Airbnb in San Francisco. I was trying to stay there for about 10 days too. But it was like for 10 days, I was looking at like $2,000 to $4,000 to live in like a 200 square foot studio apartment with Logan. I was like, well, I guess we're not going to San Francisco this time around. And if we do, we're going to stay outside. So we're staying in Palo Alto. We're only staying for like 4 days. And that's between Palo Alto and another place, but I don't remember the name. But oh my gosh, I was just like, I love San Francisco, but I don't love it for $1,000 worth for a few days. So we are unfortunately not going to be staying a lot of time up there. I don't think it will be enough time to do a meetup, but we'll be passing through. So that will be happening from now until, well, really the rest of August. And then after that, around August 22nd, I will be heading up to Portland for a month and a half. And I am so excited about that because my sister lives up in Portland. And I saw her for a little bit in April, but my sister is like my best friend. We are 4 years apart. I'm the older one. And there is nobody I would rather spend a month and a half with. Like, she is one of the coolest human beings I know. And like hanging out with her is just like, it's like that sigh of like being around your people. So I cannot wait to be there. I won't be staying with her. I'll be staying in the Pearl District in Portland. We got another cool apartment. Little Lady Logan's going to love being in her little high rise. But I'm excited to explore more of Portland. I really liked Portland the last time I went to see her in April. I don't know if I would want to live in Portland just because I can't really deal with all the cloudy days. But I love the hiking that's out there. I love the breweries that are out there. I love the scene for sure. And I also just like Portland people. But my absolute favorite thing about Portland, if you guys have not been before, my favorite thing about Portland is Powell's Bookstore. And I know that's so lame, probably, but it is called the City of Books, I believe. And it is so freaking cool. It is one of the largest bookstores I have ever been. And it's actually, no, it is the largest bookstore I have ever been to. And it's like 10, 15-foot ceilings. And it's just like floor to ceiling books. It's so cool. So highly recommend if you've never been before, check out Powell's. I feel like it's Portland famous, if not world famous. But I'll be excited because the Pearl District is right next to Powell's. So I will probably be buying a lot of books that I probably don't even need. But you know what? We're supporting authors. So that's what I've got coming up in the next couple of weeks to a month. It's kind of going to be a whirlwind. And while I am in Portland, I will also be heading out for a week to go to Orlando to go to FinCon. So I'm really excited to go to FinCon. For those of you who don't know, FinCon is kind of like the finance creators conference. It's not kind of, it is the finance creators conference. So all the finance bloggers and podcasters and YouTubers and Instagram creators and even people who just like finance go. So I'm really excited. This will be my second year going and my second year speaking at FinCon. I'll be talking about how to monetize your Instagram account on a panel with my buddy Mark from Better Wallet and Melissa from Millennial in Debt. So it'll be a really good time. I am super stoked, but we'll have to figure out the boarding Logan situation because Logan does not like being boarded. I'm sure that surprises all of you. Logan is a mama's girl for sure. And when I had the little weekend getaway here in San Diego with my friends in Encinitas, I couldn't bring Logan. And so I took her for the first time to doggy daycare. We did a couple days of doggy daycare to make sure everything was okay. And for the most part, things were fine. And so then when I boarded her at doggy daycare, I was like, all right, this will be fine, right? This will all work out. And then I show up 4 days later to pick her up, and they go, "So, Logan's not really welcome back." And I was like, "Oh, no, here we go." Logan decided in her 8 years of age that after a day and a half, she had had it. And anytime they tried to put her in with the other dogs in the little playpens, she would jump over their almost 5 foot tall fences every single time. So eventually, they had to put her into solitary confinement in her own private suite, and she was only allowed out for walks. So that's little lady Logan. And they were like, yeah, usually if they're jumping over a fence, that's like an immediate out. I can talk to my supervisor if, we need to make an exception. And they're like, no, it's totally fine. We probably won't be back anyway. And so we'll see. It sounds like I talked to them and I talked to some of my friends who have dogs about what to do in that scenario because she also does not allow dog walkers to come and take her outside. She refuses to go out with them. So I talked to a few of my friends and was like, all right, what do I do? And apparently, I just need to call around to a lot of the daycare and boarding spots to make sure she could get a private suite or to also make sure that they don't have fences. Um, but it just cracks me up. Like Logan, if you have met her or if you have seen her, she is like the sweetest, most cuddliest, most chill dog ever. But the second I leave her, all hell breaks loose. And she's like, my mom has left me forever. I need to go find her. I need to escape. And I'm sure it's a little bit of PTSD from being a stray for so long and being, I think she was also bred based off of the size of those nipples. So I'm assuming it's just a little bit of that, but I'm like, girl, what are we gonna do with you? Your mom has to go places sometimes without you. And when that happens, we have to make sure you're taken care of. So yeah, I think I'll be shopping around for a very expensive and exclusive dog boarding location in Portland. I've heard doggy hotels also exist where you literally get a room for your dog and they have a bed and a TV and everything. So Logan might be getting the royal treatment. We'll see what happens. But I'm like, how did I end up with a high maintenance dog? She is low maintenance in every single way except for that. And I'm like, girl. So that's little lady Logan, also known as Nipple Queen. She's the best. I love her so much. I would literally give a kidney for her. So anyway, that's what's going on in my life. That's what's preoccupying my thoughts. But overall, things are going really well. Let's get to your money tip of the week, and then we will dive into the interview with Aunt Kara. So this week's money tip is how the heck do you pick between a Roth or a traditional? And this could be a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k or a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k. Now, for those of you who don't know, traditional, anytime you hear the word traditional, you're going to want to think tax deferred. Now, tax deferred, what does that mean? That means that let's say you put $6,000 into a tax deferred, AKA traditional retirement account, and that money grows to $10,000. Well, you just made $4,000 of capital gains and growth. Now, you do not have to pay taxes on that in the year that you make those capital gains or the year that the value of your stocks go up. You pay taxes on that in retirement when you take that money out in retirement. That is why it's called tax deferred. You are deferring your tax payment until down the line in the future. So that's traditional IRA or traditional 401k. Roth, on the other hand, the sexy Roth that everyone's always talking about and everybody loves, Roth, think post-tax. I've already paid taxes on my income. I've got my paycheck, and out of that paycheck, they already took a chunk of taxes out for my income taxes. So now I take that money and I go and I put it into my Roth IRA account, and boom, that money grows tax-free. So when you think Roth, think tax-free growth and post-tax. So the money goes in post-tax so that it can then grow tax-free for the rest of your life. Using the same example we just used on the traditional accounts, if you put $6,000 into your Roth IRA or your Roth 401k and that money grows to $10,000, well, you just made $4,000 tax-free. You will never have to pay taxes on your Roth money unless you don't follow the rules and you take that money out too early. So how do you decide between a Roth or a traditional? Well, with traditional and with Roth, you have to really decide, do I want to pay taxes now or do I want to pay taxes later? And to answer that question, you really have to ask yourself, do I think I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket now when I'm in my peak years of earning, or do I think that my tax bracket's going to be higher in retirement? Like, I'm going to be a bougie retiree. I'm going to have multiple streams of income and I'm going to have so many different required minimum distributions. I don't know what I'm going to do with all that money. It is not always a clear-cut answer in terms of which one is going to be right for you. I think a lot of us defer to Roth because with Roth, you know what tax bracket you're in. You know what you're going to be paying in taxes. And so it's like a lot of us like the sure answer of like, you know what? I'm going to eat this tax bill now so that I can have that tax-free withdrawals in retirement and not have to worry about it. A lot of folks too think that taxes are the lowest that they've been in a really long time. So they think that taxes are going to go up in the future. If that's the case, then you might want to be doing a little bit of Roth. Now, we cannot predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. And if you're kind of on the fence and it's hanging you up, first of all, don't let it hang you up. What really matters is that you're investing. It's not that big of a deal if you're going to do Roth or if you're going to do traditional. Like, don't let that be the reason that you haven't started investing. But if you're really not sure, you can always do a little bit of both. You can do some Roth, you can do some traditional so that you have tax diversification in retirement. Tax diversification in retirement gives you options. It's not a bad thing to do things that way because then you have options. So generally, I would say the rule of thumb is if you are in the early years of your earning and you do not think that you're going to, you think you're going to only continue to make more money, you might want to go the Roth route. If you're in your later years of earning or you're a high income earner, you might want to go the traditional route. But only you can answer that, and there's not a one size fits all answer for everybody. I will say I feel like 8 times out of 10, Roth is the best fit for most folks, but you may not be most folks, and traditional may be what you want to do. For example, I do all traditional accounts. The reason I do all traditional accounts is because I'm a business owner and quarterly taxes are a bitch. So I do everything I can to reduce my taxable income so that those tax bills that come every couple of months, I try to reduce those as much as possible. So I do a traditional solo 401k and a traditional IRA and a taxable brokerage. I have a teeny tiny bit of money in a Roth IRA from when I was not a full-time business owner, but there you go. I have a little bit of both. So figure out what works best for you. There's no perfect answer, but do not let deciding between those two hang you up and stop you from investing. So that is this week's money tip. If you have questions on that, be sure to reach out in my DMs on Instagram at Clo Bare Money Coach. But let's get to the interview. And before Aunt Kara tells us all of the things in relation to travel hacking, friendly reminder to rate, review, and subscribe. Our podcast lives for those rating, reviewing, and subscribing. And that's what tells me that you like what I'm doing and you want to see more of it. So if you could just take a second, pause this, go do it. It takes about 3 minutes. I even reviewed myself, guys. I have no shame. I will review myself. I'm okay with that. So all you got to do is swipe on over to the one that I reviewed and look for Clo Bare Money Coach and then just do the same thing. It's like a template. I gave you guys a template. So anyway, go ahead and do that. And then we will go ahead and get to the episode with Aunt Kara. Thanks so much for being here. Let's get to it. All right. Well, welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. Today I have a special guest, somebody who I have been friends with on the internet for probably since Clo Bare has been in existence.
Yeah.
We've got Aunt Car. Oh my gosh. After
Oh,
talking about how to pronounce your name, now I'm
I
saying Cara.
did. I jinxed you. I'm
You
so
like
sorry.
incepted into my brain.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, rewind. We've got
Rewind.
Aunt Kara. Aunt Kara. I almost said Cara because right before we started this recording, she was talking about how sometimes people call her Aunt Cara. And I was like, who would ever call you Aunt Cara? So that's where that
Thank
came
you.
from. But Aunt Kara, welcome. How are you doing
Thank
today?
you. I'm good. It's nice to talk to you in person.
Yes, I'm so pumped for this interview. And I'm so, like I said, when you first got on, I can't believe we haven't talked like kind of
I
like in a
know.
live scenario before, but that's
Yeah,
the internet, right?
exactly. All through DM so far.
Yeah, for sure. So, Aunt Kara, um, who are you? What do you do in real life? And what do you do on the internet?
So I in real life, I'm a mom, I'm an aunt, I'm a wife. I work full time in information technology. I live in the Midwest and I'm kind of a personal finance junkie. I think that's why we, connected long ago. And I'm also an avid travel hacker. And so, as far as you and I and Instagram and meeting each other through social media, it all came about because of my Aunt Kara Instagram account.
Yes, I love it. And I think you were probably one of the first travel hacking accounts I ever followed. And what I love about your content is you make it so accessible and it's like not as extreme as some of the other travel hacking
Right.
that I've seen. So for those, before we dive into more of like how you travel hack and what your best travel hacking experiences have been, for somebody who is just now hearing the term travel hacking, which, my guess is most people have heard of it, what is travel hacking? Like, how do you define travel hacking?
So, the way I define travel hacking is basically looking for every opportunity to use the different travel loyalty programs and take advantage of the perks and the freebies and the benefits that you can get by being part of those loyalty programs. And the ultimate goal is save as much money as possible on travel through those programs. So many of them have points and miles is what they call them. The airlines have miles, the hotels and the bank cards have points, and you have different ways to earn those in order to basically substitute. It's a currency in a sense that you substitute those points for cash. And along with that, like I said, there are perks and benefits as well. You can get status where you get, room upgrades, or you get early boarding on your flights, or you get access to an airport lounge. Those are some examples of the opportunities that you have. And so, any way possible that I can get more for less when it comes to travel, that's what I'm all about.
And I love that. So when you talk about loyalty programs, you're talking about not only credit cards, but also like other loyalty programs that aren't necessarily tied to a credit card.
Well, they are, but the one distinction that I have to clarify with a lot of people is credit cards are one way to earn
Hmm.
points and miles. They are not the only way. I mean, the true blue traditional way to earn points and miles with these loyalty programs, and when I say loyalty programs, I'll just throw out a couple names like United Mileage Plus or Hilton Honors. Or with Chase, it could be their Ultimate Rewards program. So those are loyalty programs. But besides those bank cards like the Chase Ultimate Rewards, there are other ways to earn airline and hotel points. So the traditional way, and the way that I even got into this was way back when, 28 years ago. In my first job, I was an IT consultant and I traveled every single week. And I earned my points the old fashioned way. I flew United every single week in and out of Chicago to Philadelphia, and I stayed at a Hilton. So I had
Mm,
tons of United Mileage Plus miles. I had tons of Hilton Honors points. I didn't have either one of those credit cards at the time.
hmm.
I was truly earning them through all the flights and things. And I was getting my status because I had flown so many times. And that's how I did my very first travel hacking trip, is when my husband and I went to Hawaii, and we used points from a year's worth of traveling every single week, again, earning points the old fashioned way. So that had nothing to do with credit cards. Now,
Mhm.
these days, I don't travel like I used to. And there's lots of new opportunities with all the different credit cards that are on the market to basically earn points through the cards rather than travel. So I don't do that anymore. The way I earn them primarily is through credit cards, but there's some
Mm.
other ways as well that people use. You don't earn as many points, but there's things out there like shopping portals, and when you actually use one kind of other transportation partner or a dining partner, that you can earn points and miles through those ways as well. Like, it's not all credit cards, but don't get me wrong, credit cards are like the primary way to earn the most points in the fastest way possible. So
Yeah.
I just want to differentiate the cards from the programs themselves.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad I asked because it's so funny to hear you say that because when I think of travel hacking, I immediately think of the credit cards. But you're right,
Mhm.
the OG travel hacking came from these rewards programs through frequent flyers and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
So it's so cool to hear
Yeah.
how it has changed and how it has evolved. So, when would you say you fell into the travel hacking and you started falling in love with travel hacking when you were working as an IT consultant traveling every week?
Yeah, absolutely. It was like at one point, it was like my only motivation to keep doing what I was doing, because I was so tired of traveling, and I kept thinking, "I'm gonna get something out of this." I had this Hawaii trip in mind, and so I was like, "I've gotta finish out this project, and we'll get rewarded for all this,
I I love
these,
that you said
the
that, like,
time on the road."
right. No, it's so funny. Like when I was growing up, I always thought that traveling for work would be like the most glamorous and amazing thing. And then you actually do it and you're like, this is so exhausting. I could never
It
be on a
is.
routine. And especially like if you're what I was doing, I was a fundraiser. So every time we would go travel somewhere new, we were smoozing. We were like
Mhm.
taking people out. We were drinking, we're going to all the restaurants, and they're like the nicest restaurants. So you always want to eat all the things. And I was just
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to like stay healthy and like get a full 8 hours of sleep and like all of that stuff? And it's like, it was fun. And I look back on that time fondly, but it was
Mhm.
exhausting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were multiple times where I was like, I just need to find another job. But it was such professionally, it was such a good opportunity. I was with an amazing, highly respected company, and I thought, I'm a fool to leave now. Like, I know I'm not
Mhm.
doing this forever, but this will open the doors for me like forever. And it did. So like, I'm glad I did it, but I also did it for the points and miles
I
because
love that.
I did get hooked early, but again, I was a consultant for about 8 years, and so I did a lot of travel during that time. And again, I really, besides getting the Hilton Honors card, that I didn't get other credit cards back then, and we were primarily all about the debit card. Just get it out of
Mhm.
our account. I don't wanna deal with how much I owe at the end of the month. Um, but then once we had kids, and when they were little, we didn't travel quite as much, but when they got a little bit older and we thought, okay, now it's a lot easier, I said, we gotta get into this. And of course, because I am so old, I'm dating myself, internet kept growing and growing, and more information was available. And more information was available about travel hacking, and more credit cards were available. And so like things evolved where this I understood it, like the whole credit card game. And I asked Mark, my husband, if he wanted to get like change our whole model and try to do this. And he knew about it, and we experienced free travel, and he loved it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna be in charge of the strategy. You're gonna be in charge of making sure the bills are paid on time in full. And that's what we did. So we like tag teamed it, and he signs up for cards. I sign up for cards, although I really sign him up for cards because he just is hands off with that. But he knows which cards to use for what type of purchases, and I coach him. But he said, I'm in, let's do it. And so that was like in 2012 is when we went full force and started like getting a strategy together and planning out our trips, 9 months, a year in advance, and saying, okay, now what cards do we need? Which points are we going to use? And like 10 years later, we're still going strong. And I started teaching others, a couple years ago about how to do all this. So that's kind of the
I
evolution of it.
Yeah, I love that it's like a team effort between you and your husband
Mhm.
and that he was like totally on board and that you guys divided and conquered. And also, as a side note, for those of you who don't know Aunt Kara, one fun fact about them that I love is that you guys were high school sweethearts, weren't you?
We were, yeah,
Which is
yeah.
the cutest thing ever.
I know. We met when we were like 15 or 16. We didn't date right away. He wanted to date, I didn't want to date. And then later on in high school, we ended up officially dating. We were friends for a while, but yeah, and we were off and on even in college. We didn't stay together the whole time, but by our senior year in college, we're like, okay, we know what we're doing now, and we've been together ever since.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so cute. I love that. So,
28, hey, just to let you know, 28 years in 10 days. It'll be 28 years we've been married.
well,
Yep.
happy early anniversary.
Thank you, thank you. And
Yay.
we're travel hacking to celebrate. We're going to Vegas.
Oh
Totally
my
free.
gosh.
Yeah.
So true to the brand.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so that leads me into my next question. Then, first, if I remember correctly, don't you have a running list of how much money you have saved from travel hacking?
Yeah, and I'm so glad I did it because I always want to tell people I didn't do this in hindsight. I don't know what made me do it. I definitely didn't have an Instagram account. No one was paying attention to what I was doing. But back in 2012, one day at lunch, when I like started getting more strategic about it, I created an Excel spreadsheet on my computer and logged the first couple trips and what the cash value of our trip was worth. So every time I got on and booked the hotel and booked the airline and made all the reservations, I went back in and then I redid it as if I was paying cash for the
Mm.
exact same itinerary, the same room type, everything. And then I typed in what the, cash value of that was. And I ever since I've been doing it, for 10 years, every single year. And we're up to 90,000 now, $90,000 worth of travel. Yeah, with this year, I was at like
90.
yeah, yeah. So,
Holy crap.
yeah, I mean, I have a family of 4. I guess I didn't say I have 2 kids, right? And so, again, we have Mark doing this, me doing this, and we have to a lot of time we travel a lot with our kids, so we have 4 people to cover. So, we do domestic travel too. What's interesting too is there's a lot of opportunities internationally to travel hack too, but we just not for any specific reason except for my family just hadn't been super interested in international travel. That's all domestic travel. So we've done a ton, because although it's pricey, it's not as pricey as international travel. So we've done a heck of a lot of trips. I forget what our trip count is. I posted about it one day. Um, but it's been fun. It's been a
That
lot of
is
fun.
so cool, and, like, what a
Yeah.
good feeling once you cross into that $100,000 mark. Like, that's like a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
like, I know everybody in the personal finance community is all about, like, getting to your first $100,000
100,000?
invested, but, like
Yeah.
but, like, you're getting to that first $100,000 of trackable hacking savings. That is so
Yeah.
cool. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Well, and I also love that you did keep that spreadsheet because that's totally something I would do too, because I like to see the data of like, okay,
Yeah.
here's that's why I torture myself with running my numbers of like, oh, what would have happened had I invested this money instead, like on
Yeah.
like my big mistakes and things like that. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
really, really cool.
motivating.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
and it's just
is.
like with personal finance, I'm the same way. I mean, I track my net worth, I track our investment accounts, and I have spreadsheets. I'm totally old school. I honestly don't use apps, and even with our budget, I'm all spreadsheets. But like
Same.
seeing numbers motivates me, and
Hmm.
I like to look back and reflect and say, what how did I get here? And so it's really fun to see the numbers and think, God, where are we going to be in another year? How much are we going to get out of
Yeah.
this year? So yeah,
Yeah. That's
it's
so
fun.
cool. I
Yeah.
love that. So what would you say was like do you have like a list of like your biggest travel hacking wins? Like what's something that really stands out as like this was a huge travel hacking win for me?
Well, I mean, the fact that so Hawaii is our favorite destination, and we have travel hacked it like 11 times. So if you look at my list that I post every once a year at least. Um, the fact that we've gone to Hawaii so many times for nearly free, and there's once in a while, like if you go around the holidays, I can't swing all 4 flights for free and whatever, and
Mhm.
I don't include those in my spreadsheet. I only include the free stuff in my spreadsheet. But the fact that we've been able to do so many trips to Hawaii and go to multiple islands and multiple hotel chains and I mean multiple airlines, like I feel like that's been pretty awesome. I mean, my kids are a little spoiled to say the least to think that like people just always go to Hawaii on vacation, but
You're like, "That's just what you do."
yeah, but like some of the most memorable ones, like honestly, last summer it was a simple. I'll say it's a simple trip. Last summer was one of the most memorable trips, and I don't know, maybe it's because it's more recent, but for my son graduated from high school last year, and I told him, and we had a lot of points because we didn't fly during COVID, so
Right.
the points kept accumulating and we had a lot to work with last year. And so I told my son, I mean, I knew he wasn't going to pick anything international. I go, "Where do you want to go like as a graduation present?" Just because I knew it'd be paid for. It's not like it was out of my pocket. Um
Yeah.
and he said, "I want to go to New York." He loves big cities. And we'd been to New York before, but we hadn't been for a few years. He goes, "I want to go to New York. I want to take my girlfriend and I want to go for a long weekend and go see a Yankees game and whatever." And I was like, "Done." And so we took my son, my daughter, his girlfriend, and her friend, and Mark and I went, and we were able to pay for everything with points. So all, 4 kids, Mark and I, we got 2 hotel rooms. Like it was so cool that we're just invite these kids and go, "Come on, everybody, we're gonna fly to New
Yeah.
York." And we had the best time because the kids that were with us hadn't been before, and it'd been a while for my kids, so they didn't really remember everything. I mean, they will never forget that trip. It was so fun. The weather was perfect. Everybody was happy. The flights were on time. I mean, it was an experience. So even though that's not like I mean, it was a couple-hour flight and, everybody goes to New York, no big deal, but it was just a special one. So that's
Yeah.
my
Oh
most
my gosh.
memorable one.
I love that because it's like I can't even imagine an 18-year-old like after graduating college or sorry, high school and somebody turning to me and saying like, "Where do you want to go?" I'd be like,
Right. That's not the way I
what?"
was raised. I can tell you that
Yeah.
we didn't even when I grew up and never even flew on a plane. So
Yeah.
understand this wasn't a lifestyle that I was used to by any means, like, "Oh, and I'm just gonna do this for my kids." I mean, that's why it feels so special too, because I know it's a
Yeah.
unique thing and I don't take that for granted. Yeah.
100%. It's so cool to be able to like give that gift not only to your son, but his girlfriend and then her friend. Like you just gifted
Yes.
this amazing experience to all these young people, which I have no doubt is life changing, especially for the
Yeah.
ones that went for the very first time, like could have opened their eyes to be like, oh, maybe I want to move here. Maybe I want to do something inside of a big city. I mean, those are pivotal moments, I feel like, when you're that young.
I agree for
Yeah,
sure.
that is so cool. I love that. So if somebody who is listening is like, okay, I'm juiced, this sounds cool, this is something that I want to do, what's kind of some of your biggest, like maybe top 3 tips that you're like, okay, if you want to get into travel hacking, here are my top 3 tips for you to get started?
Okay, well, I always say this on my Instagram account, and I'll never stop saying it. If you have credit card debt right now, do not do this. And I know it sounds really fun and exciting and tempting. Don't do it until your credit cards are paid off because you will never ever get ahead
Hmm.
if you're in debt with credit cards, paying late fees, paying interest rates, the interest rates that are insanity on credit cards. Don't get into this until you are completely credit card debt free, or else
Yeah,
it's not worth it. The value
it'll
of
like
what you're gonna earn.
cancel it out.
Yes, yeah, it's just it's not. As fun as it seems, it's you've gotta beat the banks with this. You can't let them win and get more money out of you than you're getting out of them. So, that's the number 1 tip. The
Hmm.
second one is I tell people to start slow. Like, people just wanna jump in and they hear, "Oh, I heard there's this really great credit card offer, so is that the one I should sign up for?" One size does not fit all. You need to understand, like, what kind of travel do you want to do? Where do you live? What are the right airlines for where you're flying in and out of? Where are the destinations you like to go to? And what are the hotel chains there? Or are you someone who rather stay in Airbnbs? Because those decisions or those preferences really drive like what type of programs you want to be affiliated with. So
Mhm.
being in touch with like, even just starting with what is your initial goal, pick a trip, like pick a destination, and all the research that you can do up front for that is totally free. You can go into all these airline and hotel websites and search by points and understand like how many points does it really take to get a free hotel night? Well, it depends. What's the hotel loyalty program? What hotel is it? What time of year are you traveling? Because
Mhm.
the points that are required are completely different depending on all those factors. So
Mhm.
you don't want to dive in and then realize, wait a second, I only got a $50,000 or 50,000 point sign up bonus and I would need like 250,000 for what I wanted to do, and then you're
Mhm.
totally disappointed and you don't know what to do with your points or whatever. So you get the point that like you need to understand what your goal is and to start slow and be
Mhm.
realist. Another thing is be realistic about the time that this takes. So not the time that it takes to be a travel hacker, but the time it takes to plan for a trip. Like when you're going on points, the soon a lot of times the sooner you book the better, like
Mhm.
because you will spend less points. I mean, it's very similar to if you're paying for for flights with cash, right?
Right.
The
Well, and you were even
prices
talking yeah, and you were even talking about how you guys plan out something like 9 months to 12 months in advance.
definitely for like a Hawaii trip,
Right.
100%. I've had some people DM me lately and tell me they want to go to Hawaii this fall and what's the best way to do it, and they haven't even signed up for a card yet. And I'm like, oh, guys, come on, you
You're
gotta
like,
have
"It is
realistic.
it's July 27th,
I
fall is,
know.
like, in 2 months."
Right, right. I'm like, these points don't instantly appear when you get the card in the mail. Like, you have to meet
Right.
minimum spend, you have to pay the annual fee first, it's and then you have to go look and see is anything even available. And you go to a high demand place like a Hawaii, you're gonna be competing with other people that are have paying cash for their rooms or doing points. So, yeah,
Mhm.
planning ahead is like the other tip and be realistic about how long it takes. Now, if you're just doing a quick flight to where there's, to Florida or something like that, you might be able to swing something, a month or two in advance, no big deal. But yeah, the big destinations, the popular destinations, you've got to plan much further ahead. Or if it's just more complicated, like just you have more people that have to do it, you need more points. Um,
Mhm.
so just being realistic with what it takes,
I love that.
to do
So,
that.
have you ever had I mean, obviously, as content creators, we get trolls all the time, and this is just one that I thought of while, you were talking about travel hacking, and I'm like, have you ever had, like, somebody come into the comments about, like, when you do a post about travel hacking, where they have, like, some kind of objection? Like, what's the most common objection you hear from people when it comes to travel hacking?
Um, it's not so much the trolls as it is that they people that fool themselves to think they can do it and then don't have the discipline with credit cards
Mm,
and end up going in thinking, yeah, I can do this, and then they fall into their old ways of not paying a card off in full, and then they get in over
mhm,
their heads. And so some people are just flat out anti credit card in
mhm,
general, like that they're evil and they're bad. And I mean, if you don't have the self-discipline, with those cards and you're looking at it as like a loan, and money that, if you have a $5,000 credit limit on a card, that means you have $5,000 spend, then you shouldn't do this. And those folks are like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And people that'll follow me for personal finance content, and then I start talking about credit cards and that they're awesome, they're like, "Oh, yeah, unfollow. I don't do," credit cards are evil. But I've told people, and the other thing though is in the personal finance world, everybody's really focused on their money, right? So
mhm,
so my followers respect money. They understand the value of a budget, right? That's the foundational thing of money. Better than anybody, budgets are your foundation to control
mhm,
your money. So I don't see credit cards doing anything to your budget. You know, you're using those cards, but you're staying on budget. I feel like everything can go hand in hand. It's the way
Mhm.
you view that's the way you view credit cards. I never go out and buy something that I don't have cash that I could pay, you know, in my bank account that I could pay for that in cash right now if I wanted. I do not look at credit cards as a loan. I just look at it as one more hop before the bills actually, you know, before the service or the purchase is
Right,
actually, you know, paid for. So
right.
that's, you know, more of that than so much trolls besides, you know, the whole cash is king and this and that. But again, it's all about the temptation of credit cards. And I don't have that. Like credit cards don't make me spend more, but I know that
Right.
it's real and some people it does. They look at it as they have that money, like that money's theirs, and I don't look at it that way. So,
Yeah, and I love that that was your number one tip of like, if you are not somebody who can, responsibly use a credit card, this is not for you. And I say the
mhm,
same thing about debt consolidation. For folks who are looking at debt consolidation as a way to get out of credit card debt, I'm
mhm,
like, okay, this is only an option if you have addressed the behaviors that got you into credit card debt in the first place and you have stuck to a budget for at least 6 months. Because the second you use a debt consolidation loans, it frees up your credit card. And it depends on what type of loan it is. But then
mhm.
all of a sudden you have this free credit that you could use. And so it's
Right.
like, if you then see those credit cards as like loans or money that's available for you to spend, you're going to be in a much worse situation as you start using those credit cards again. And not only do you have that credit card debt, but you also have that debt consolidation loan. So it's like
Right, right,
you're
because
in
the debt
double
doesn't go
trouble.
away. Yeah, yeah, because
No,
your previous debt doesn't go away. I mean, maybe you reduce the interest rate on it, but you don't eliminate it. It's consolidate,
no.
not eliminate. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it definitely depends on what program you're going
Mhm,
through, but still it's like one of those things where same vein of thinking of like you got to address your own behaviors before you like I feel like credit card hacking is for folks who or travel hacking is for folks who are at a different level. They're like how the
mhm.
money guys always say the financial mutants, the people who are, already doing all the other
Yeah,
stuff correctly.
yeah.
Um Okay, so amazing tips. Where can folks find you? How can they work with you? Promote yourself? Tell us everything you got going on.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. It's aunt.cara. I post very regularly. I will give you a tip that I post a lot more about travel hacking in my stories than I do on my main feed. I talk a lot about personal finance, which was the original purpose of my account years ago. And so that's the primary way. There is also, I do have a website. I'm not as active on my website. That's auntcara.com. But when I offer certain things like webinars or workshops, I do they're on my website. And then also when there's some things, it's interesting in the social media world. Some of the banks have some restrictions about how much what you can say on their
Mm.
on certain platforms about the cards about credit cards.
Mhm.
So the banks have some rules and it's around security and privacy and things. I can say whatever I want on my blog, on my
Mhm.
website, and I can't always say everything on my post. So sometimes I will point people and say, you know, just head to the link in my profile and you can read my whole description about this card I'm talking about. So
Mhm.
sometimes there's additional card content out there too. I do have a workshop coming up, and my workshop is a two-part. I haven't had it since February. I did one in November, I did one in February, then I kind of took the summer off, but it's a two-part workshop and I go in pretty decent depth of how to do this and all the tips and tricks and all the different ways, even beyond credit cards, that you can earn points and miles. It's two parts because I give you homework too. There's a private Facebook as well for all the attendees where I do like one-on-one answer whatever questions are out there and I let everybody else see the answers. Um, and it's a really interactive session. And I do like basically 2 weeks. So it'll be, you know, 2 Sundays in a row or 2 Tuesdays in a row. And so this next session is August 14th and 16th, which is a Sunday and a Tuesday, and then the 28th and 30th. So of August. So those are my upcoming workshop dates. And I haven't posted, I'm going to be posting the registration here very soon.
Awesome. And
Yes.
we will be putting the links to all of that down in the show notes
Awesome.
as well. So don't worry, we got you covered there. But that is so
Good.
cool. All right. So I have a final question that I like to ask everybody who comes onto the Money Bear podcast. What
Okay.
is your very first money memory?
Ooh,
That's
I
always the
should have
reaction I get. It's like people are like, oh, that's a good one.
on a oh, God. Probably probably the feeling of having my own money in high school and feeling like, honestly, like the empowered feeling, of being able to buy the type of things that my parents wouldn't buy me, and that I now had that ability and control where I used to be at the mercy of, what my mom said she was willing to buy or not. So I think it was that feeling. I was a saver when I was young. a-
Really?
And I babysat and I worked at a clothing store and I loved saving up for bigger things that my mom would be like, "No way, I'm not gonna buy you those name brand jeans," or, "No, you can't have won't buy you a 14 karat gold necklace again." I grew up in the '80s, so, anyway, that's kind of what I thought, that, like, it felt good to have my own money, I mean, for
Hmm.
sure, and
I,
and that I could get things that I had never been able to get before, so, yeah.
Oh, that's the best feeling. That was the feeling that I had too when I was like, my mom and dad had 5 kids in 7 years. And so money was really tight. And,
Mhm.
we had, the lights were always on and like, the bills were always paid for, but we didn't have extra. It wasn't like,
Right.
you could go out and get
No.
whatever you wanted or trips to Disney
Yeah.
World or things like that. It was like
No.
you had to figure out a way to make that happen yourself. And so I started working when I was like 9 years old doing like concession stands and like
Mhm.
babysitting
I
at
worked a
9 a.m.
concession stand 2 su
Yes.
2 summers in a row, the city pool. I worked at the concession stand at the city pool for t
Yes.
for 2 summers in a row.
Oh my gosh. It was the best job though, because they
It
would be
was.
like, all right, you can eat $5 worth of snacks. And I was like, yes.
Oh, exactly. All day long, unlimited Sprite and Coke, yeah, out of the
Yes.
machine.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, and it's so funny because, like, talking to entrepreneurs as well, like, almost every person who I've had on is an entrepreneur. And they actually, I think, yeah, all of them except for my mom. My mom's going to come out next week, which when you guys are
Oh,
listening to
neat.
this, she's already out. I interviewed her, which was a really fun conversation. But almost every single entrepreneur I've had has started working really, really young. And it was
Mhm.
funny. I interviewed Delianne's sister from I Speak Social,
Mhm.
Natalia.
Yep.
Um, and I also interviewed Mark from Better Wallet. Both of them had been candy drug dealers when they were little kids, where essentially they would go to the candy store, they'd buy a bunch of candy, and then they would sell it to their friends at school, but for like an upcharge. And the reason I called them candy drug dealers is because they were like funding their own habits.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yeah,
I
that's
love
so
it.
funny.
Yeah, I love hearing everyone's early money memories because it's not something we think about, right? It's like it's
No.
buried deep in the recess of our brain.
Right, for sure, that's fun, yeah.
Yeah, well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. Again, we'll put all your links down in the show notes, so everybody be sure to check that out, give her a follow, and all that good stuff. But thanks so much for coming on today, Kara.
Thank you, Chloe. It was fun.
Yeah. Okay, so do you guys like all want to go out and start travel hacking now? Let me know by either sending me an email at chloe@clobear.com or slipping into my DMs over at the Money Bear or at Clo Bare Money Coach. But I tell you what, she put me in the mood to start travel hacking more. I feel like I don't do it enough, but I also am the type of person who's like, I need somebody to do it for me. I'm too busy. I don't want to figure it out, but I love how she lives off of that. And her webinar, those links to the things, the workshop, so I'll leave those down in the show notes. But of course, since we are talking about personal finance, I always got to remind you guys that these things that we talk about are not to be construed as financial advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. If you are curious about your own situation, always recommend doing your own research or connecting with a professional finance professional. I said professional twice, but you get my drift, because everybody's situation is different. So There's your friendly disclaimer. And if you want to see more, head on over to clobear.com to check out my terms and conditions there. So, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, Clo Bare, this all sounds really great, but I have credit card debt and I don't have a budget and I still haven't started investing and I don't have an emergency fund. Well, I have some resources for you. Head on down to the show notes where I have a link to my free money guide called the Get Your Money Right Guide. It's 30 plus pages of free templates, lots of free resources, and tools and education in how to get you started on your money journey right freaking now. And then if you're at the stage where you're ready to start investing, I got a free class for you. So check out the link down in the show notes to join my free investing class. I host it once a month, so I hope to see some of you guys there. That's all we got this week. And of course, if you have made it this far and you have not yet rated, reviewed, or subscribed, what are you doing? Why do you hate me? Go down and do that. It takes you about 2 seconds. So if you could do that real quick, I would really, truly appreciate it. It lets us know that you like what you're doing. And yeah, I think that's it for this week. So I thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye bye.